Welcome, everybody. By my clock, it looks like it's time for us to go ahead and get started. In fact, let me do my proper introduction here. I'll turn on my camera just for a moment while we do introductions. There we go. Welcome, everybody. Mike Hamilton here. We're going to be finishing up. This is the final episode in the series about creating a modern documentation portal. I know it's been a long time coming. A lot of people have given me a little bit of grief. It's like, my gosh, it's taken a long time to get to the payoff. Well, we had to do all of that preliminary CSS work, design work to get to where we are now. This is the episode where we put all those final details together. Having said that, this is probably the most technically difficult webinar I have ever done. So fingers crossed that everything goes together. We're going to be juggling 3 separate Flare projects, connecting them all together. The odds of something going wrong are pretty high, but we'll work through it. All right, so with that, welcome everybody. That was a little bit of a stall because we still have people joining in the meeting. A couple of announcements before we start though. And now that I've introduced, I'll go ahead and turn the camera off. So before we get started, if you are new to our webinars, before anybody asks, yes, the webinar will be recorded. By simply registering, you don't even have to attend, you will get an email with a link to that recording once we have it posted up on our website. It typically takes 24 to 48 hours just to get everything finished up, processed, and get everything posted. But once it's up, you will get that link, and your microphones are on mute for both your privacy protection and to cut down on the background noise in the meeting. So that brings up, well, how do we ask questions? There is a dedicated questions interface in this GoToWebinar software that we use. You're more than welcome to open that questions panel. You can type in a question at any time during the session. Now, I want to qualify that though. I got taken out to the woodshed a little bit in episode 4 of this series. Some people were quite angry with me. We ended up going about 10 minutes overtime at the end. I don't want that to happen again. We have a lot to cover, so I probably won't be addressing as many questions live as I did last time, just to be kind of more of a timekeeper. At the end, if we do have some time left over, I'll be going back to that question and answer panel, and I'll be trying to catch up on any of those questions that I may have missed. So with that, let's all go ahead and jump in. So the agenda for today, first, I'm going to set up the scenario. What is it that we're trying to accomplish? And I've tried to pick kind of a worst case scenario. Once we've established the scenario, if we want to do a web portal and I need to pull in documents from multiple Flare projects, well, there are some things I need to do in those production level Flare projects to prepare for that portal publishing. Once we have the production projects ready, then we will create a separate just portal publishing Flare project. That's going to be kind of the brains of the whole operation. Once we've established this multi-project connection, then I want to talk about, well, how do we create this fancy, splashy homepage? Typically, your portal needs a front door. So how do we create that front door? And then lastly, and I'm going to label this as time permitting. Again, I don't want to go overtime like we did last time, but one of the things that can be overwhelming, especially if your portal is now going to include hundreds of documents. Well, a benefit is that now that, search can search your entire library at one time. But the downside to that is the number of search results can be overwhelming. So Flare does support a technique called search filters. So if a customer searches on the word server and they end up getting, 700 responses, well, then they can use their search filter and say, well, no, I realize in the library there are 700 responses, but I want to search specifically in the product C installation manual server. Oh, now you get 6 responses or 6 results. So hopefully we get through this quickly, because adding that search filter, that's just kind of the final bow on top of that web portal interface. All right, so all of that introduction, we'll jump into the actual scenario that I have imagined. Now, I did keep it complex in structure, but with as few moving parts as possible to, again, try to cram in the time frame that we have available. So in my fictional mind's eye here, we're representing a company, and that company has 2 products. And I'm going to keep it simple. I'll just call them Product A and Product B. Now, those 2 products are being documented in 2 separate Flare projects. Apparently, there's not a content reuse between those 2. Whether we had them as one large Flare project or 2 smaller Flare projects, that would be kind of the company's choice. Now, if there was a lot of content reuse happening, I'd probably want to merge them into one big project. But again, I tried to create kind of a worst case scenario here. Then on top of that, those 2 Flare projects are managed by 2 separate authoring teams. Maybe they're not even in the same building. Maybe product A is built in Europe and product B is built in the United States somewhere, or Canada or someplace else. They could be on different continents. We're still going to be able to pull across this web portal. But rather than do 20 products, I kept it simple with just 2. Our ultimate goal, we want to publish a single HTML5 portal that includes 4 separate documents. Product A has an installation guide and a user guide. Product B has an installation guide and a user guide. Traditionally, those have been 4 separate PDF documents we've been publishing, but marketing wants a single cohesive web portal where a customer can choose to navigate into one of those 4 individual documents if they want to browse, but they can search globally across all 4 documents at the same time. So that's the ultimate goal. All right, so if that's the goal, what do we have to do to our 2 existing Flare projects, the Product A project and the Product B project? Well, the biggest thing is when we start merging these files together, we have to make sure that we have proper naming conventions. Once we have proper naming conventions, then we need to make sure that we absolutely have proper naming conventions. And then we really need to make sure. Now, obviously I'm joking around here, but the problem is, and I've seen this in way too many customer projects, Product A project at the root level has a topic named Introduction. Then you go visit the Product B team, and in their project at the root level, they have a topic named Introduction. That's not going to work. When we start merging these projects together to create this portal, basically whichever topic gets imported last is going to overwrite the previous one. So we really have to be careful with our naming conventions. Now, does that mean that my Flare project can't have any topics with the same names as the other team's Flare project? Not quite. But it just means we can't have the exact same path data. So it actually can be resolved not by renaming tens of thousands of topics, but just by introducing some subfolders. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, the key thing, if you look at this bullet on screen right now, that last little phrase, at the root level, that is where things need to be unique, because that is what sets up the overall path information. As long as the path is unique, the individual topics can be the same. So as a result, if I have Flare project that looks like this little screenshot that I'm sharing right now, in the content folder, I have introduction topics, feature topics, procedure topics, and reference topics. Well, if my colleagues on the other team use that same naming convention, because that's how then we're going to have problems. However, it's easy to fix. If I bring up this screenshot on the right, I've made one minor change. If you notice on the right, I've added a subfolder. So if this is the Flare project for product A, I just introduce a subfolder and I name it product A. So now, even if product B's Flare project has a folder named introduction / topics, as long as it's not inside a folder named product A, which they should have product B as their subfolder, well, now we're all set. So one on the left, bad, we could end up with conflicts in the file paths. The one on the right, that now we're good. Now we're all set. Now that was in the Content Explorer. We don't get to stop there. We're going to have to look at a couple of other places in our Flare project. So what about the table of contents? Again, you don't want identical naming conventions. If you have a table of contents named installation manual, and the other team has a table of contents named installation manual, again, it's not going to work. Whoever imports last will overwrite the other team's file. So again, it's just as simple as, so on the left, this would be typical, 2 TOCs, one named installation guide, one named user guide. All we have to do is modify the naming conventions a little bit and rename those as product A installation guide, product A user guide. I know for certain that is not going to match any of the naming conventions that Team B is using. So again, it might seem like common sense, but these are the kinds of things that if you don't think about them, the first time you try to merge all of your files together into that portal system, it will just become a giant mess. So again, on the left, not good. On the right, good. Unique naming conventions. Now, I could have used that folder technique here. I could have gone into the TOC's folder and created a subfolder named product A. But that seems, to me, that makes much more sense in the content manager. Here, having that extra folder in the TOC's folder just seems like overkill. So I actually prefer to rename the TOC files themselves. Now, of course, if we were publishing 400 separate documents and I had 400 separate TOC files, well, then it might make sense to do that subfolder technique here as well, rather than having to rename 400 TOCs. I just want to show a couple of different options. And I hope you're noticing a trend here. This really applies to any file type that could be redundant between your production projects. And so the last one we will look at, for example, is images. If we go into the resource folder and we look into images, again, this is where subfolders can really save or make this process much more reliable. So on the left, again, this is very typical, and we're going to modify it as on the right. On the left, all of our images are just in resources and images. That is how Flare will default when you're adding image files to your Flare project. However, it's not hard to go in, like on the right here, manually add a new subfolder and name it product A. If the B team does that as well, well, again, now when these two projects merge together for that portal publishing, our images folder will have two separate image folders, one for product A, one for product B, and there are no collisions. They will not overwrite each other. And again, you might be thinking, well, why would that be a problem? We're different products. We have different images. Well, it's not really the images being different. It's the naming conventions. And I have seen customers where their images are just, screenshot 24, screenshot 20. Well, if both teams have an image named screenshot 24, that will be a conflict. But again, something as simple as just adding a subfolder will resolve all of those issues. So again, left, not good. Right, with the subfolder, good. All right, now, how are we doing on time? We're pretty good. I'm not going to fib. Some of this is a bit of a pain. I'll try and share some techniques to make it a little bit faster. But I do have 3 different Flare projects open. I'm going to go ahead and go to my product A Flare project. And here in product A, you can see I've already added that subfolder that says product A. Adding that new subfolder isn't hard. I'll just go to the content folder. I'll go up to the toolbar, click new folder. I'll name this one demo folder. Once you've created that new folder, you can literally just drag and drop these 4 subfolders into that new folder you've created. So doing that is easy. I said I wasn't going to hit the Q&A window, but a good question popped in. Why aren't we just using runtime merging? Are there drawbacks? For those who've been using Flare for a long time, something that was quite popular about 10 years ago was something called runtime merging. It actually grew out of the Microsoft compiled HTML help world. The downside to what's known as runtime merging, which I will admit it was a very quick and easy way to do a portal. The problem is the techniques that were used in Microsoft compiled HTML help are no longer modern web browser compatible. Now, we managed to make it still work in HTML5, but only if you're using the original tri-pane skin. As to my knowledge, if you switch to one of the more modern HTML5 skins, top nav or side nav, runtime merging is no longer an option. I mean, unless the developers pulled off some magic I didn't hear about. The problem with runtime merging is it relied on some older web techniques using JavaScript and what was known as cross-frame scripting, which fast forward to 2021, that is now seen as a major security issue in modern web browsers. So that's why runtime merging used to be a really good solution. It's a solution that kind of still works today, but it really limits your options. I hope that answered the question. The technique I'm showing in this webinar does not use what runtime merging, and we're going to produce an output that is completely up to modern security standards. No cross-frame scripting, none of that. All right, so here's my Flare project where I have gone in and I've added that subfolder, product A. If I switch over to my project organizer, and if I go into my TOCs, you can see I've already done the renaming for those. That was, easy peasy. And the neat thing is, again, hopefully everybody knows this, but I can't make assumptions. As long as you move folders or files, rename files like I'm showing here, as long as you do it inside of Flare, you're all good. Flare will detect any links that might break because of the new path data. Flare is going to offer to fix those links. You just click yes, please, and it will move the file. Do not ever try to reorganize your Flare project or rename any files outside of Flare. Don't use Windows Explorer thinking, oh, let's be faster. You're just going to create a giant mess. The next time you open your Flare project, you're going to have thousands of broken links that you need to fix. So it is critical that all these suggestions I'm making, they're implemented right in the Flare interface. So Flare can update all of the hyperlinks, cross-reference links, table of contents links, all of those various links connecting all of our components together. All right, so once we have the product A project fully prepped, we have the product B project fully prepped. The next thing we need to do is we need to get to the portal project. We're actually going to end up creating a completely brand new Flare project. Its only purpose in life is to create this portal that we want our customers to have. Now, the technique that's going to be used is officially called global project linking. But for this portal example, we're actually going to kind of use it in reverse. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, when global project linking was invented by the MadCap developers, it was designed as a way to share files between multiple Flare projects. To give you an example, we have a lot of customers where, okay, I have 3 different teams. They're running 3 different Flare projects, but I need them all to use the same corporate style sheet. Or I need them all to use the same official company logo graphic, or any common file type like that. This is where you would create kind of an umbrella or a corporate Flare project. You would put all of those common files in that corporate project, and it could then be linked to the production projects. Now, I realize that's probably not a great word picture, so let me do an actual picture. So we have 2 separate Flare projects. Project B is on the right, and they're doing their publishing. Project A is on the left, they're doing their publishing. Everything is great. And then somebody from, corporate marketing says, wait a minute, the styling's a little bit different between the two. Something's going off there. We want one common style sheet to be forced onto both projects. Well, that's the traditional use case for global project linking. We would create a corporate Flare project. We would put in that style sheet that now marketing wants to control. And then the same way that you import, say, a Word document or you import HTML files, people may not realize this, but you can import from another Flare project. So we go into production project A, we import that style sheet from the corporate project. And now here's the key bit. There's one little checkbox to tell it to stay synchronized. So now if anybody from marketing ever updates the style sheet in that corporate project, that update will be forced on production project A. And now we can go to project B and we can do the same import the style sheet, set it to stay synchronized. And now we have a completely automated system. If marketing decides we need to do a rebrand and they want to change the company colors, well, it's no longer up to the teams to implement that. Marketing just updates the style sheet one time, and then boom, it synchronizes down to both production projects automatically. Well, as I said, that's the traditional use case. We're actually using it in a non-traditional way to do portal publishing. So we still have our two Flare projects, but rather than importing from the corporate project, we're going to do the exact opposite. We're going to create a portal project. From that portal project, I'm going to import the entirety of project A, and I'm going to import the entirety of project B. And once again, I'm going to set both of those imports to be synchronized. Then the only thing the portal publishing project does is publish HTML5. But the way Flare works, the moment you tell it to build the portal HTML5, the very first thing it does as part of the build process is resynchronize all of these imports. So it's guaranteed to have the most up-to-date, most recent approved topics from both projects whenever we build that portal. So that's the key step. We're going to create this third Flare project. All right, so to do that, and again, some of this I've already set up. So here I have a Flare project. If you look up in the top left corner, it just says test port. This is my test portal project. To add a new Flare project, I went up, and actually, I think I need to I don't have these. So this is real world. This is where it gets live and scary for me. I'm going to go to the project tab. I'm going to say import Flare project. Now, this little checkbox here, auto re-import, that is the keep it synchronized option. We want to make sure that is checked. And now I want to navigate and locate those two Flare projects. Now, the first one I want is product A docs. That's the name of the other Flare project. And open. Now, when I click next, it says, okay, what files do you want? I'm going to go with all files except I don't want style sheets. And the only reason I'm not going to synchronize style sheets is in about 10 minutes from now, I'm going to implement a custom style that I have that's going to really put the kind of the magic into that home page. So I don't want this import overriding my local style sheet. So I'm going to include everything except style sheets. With that set, I'll click the Finish button. Flare just processed all those files. I'm pretty happy. I click Accept. Now, in our portal project, you can see that I have that Product A folder. But I can't edit these files, though. This is just kind of a publishing conduit now. Now, if I open Product A and I open one of the subfolders, I'm sure it's hard to see in the web interface, but next to that little edge icon, there's like a little metal chain link in the bottom right corner. Anytime you see that little metal chain link, that indicates this file is from an import. You can't edit this file. If you want this file to be edited, you would have to go make that edit in the Product A production project. Then it would synchronize and it would update here. So that's how you can always tell which files are being synchronized. All right, now we need the same thing. I need to pull in Product B. So once again, Project tab, I'll go to Import, Import Flare Project. I'm going to do the same settings. I want it to be synchronized. I'm going to click the little Navigate button on the right. Only instead of Product A docs, this time we want Product B docs. And once again, I'm going to pull in include files. I'm going to say all files, and then exclude files. I don't want style sheets. Again, I've got my import. I'll click accept. And so now you can see my product B folder. So now this portal project is actually a combination of all of the content files from both production projects. Question just came in. What about things like conditions and variables? All right, that is something that the two teams would need to work together on, because you don't but it doesn't work for product B. As long as they haven't used the exact same variable names, we should be okay. Now, one thing, and I wasn't going to do this for the sake of time, but I'm going to scribble on screen for a minute. One thing you could do, this would complicate a little more, but I've got oh, that yellow is not a good color. I can't believe it chose that by default. Let's do blue. So I have production project A over here. I have production project B over here. And I have my portal project down here. And I'm doing the import in this direction. You could still have a corporate project up here and have both teams share, master conditional files, master variable files if necessary. And if they have to share a variable file, then they're going to name there's something unique because they don't want to use the other person's variable. So you could use global project linking in both scenarios, the traditional scenario and the portal scenario at the same time. It's just what's the comfort level of your team, getting to that level of complexity. Hope that made sense. That's about all the time I have to drill into that one. Okay, so the next thing I want to focus on, and this is that portal project. The problem is right now, I have like 4 different home pages. Which one do I use? Do I use the product A installation guide homepage? Do I use the product B user guide homepage? That's not great. I really need to create a new kind of front door for our web portal system. So I'll go back to the Content Explorer, and I have just created a new topic that I named Portal Home. Now, what are we going to make this new topic look like? Well, creating the home page. Before you even open Flare, just go to a whiteboard, get out a piece of paper that you can doodle on, whatever. Just do a rough drawing. And sometimes you're going to want to get together with the kind of the core stakeholders and make sure we're going to meet their needs. Well, in our case, there's really 3 people we have to answer to: the marketing manager, the product manager, and the UX manager. So I went and got feedback from each of those 3 people. And marketing doesn't want a lot of text on the homepage. They want big, fancy, clickable, sexy looking graphics. Okay, that's one point of view. Then we go and talk to the product manager. Well, their big thing is they don't want to be left out. Product A better have a link on the homepage. Talk to the product manager for B. Product B better have a link on the homepage. Okay, that's a different requirement. And then we talk to the UX manager, and their big thing is, yeah, all the above, but it had better be able to adapt between a desktop interface, a tablet interface, and a mobile interface. So we have to come up with some new homepage that's going to make all 3 of these managers happy. So maybe even in the meeting with all 3 of them, we need to doodle this out, again, on a whiteboard or a piece of scrap paper. So what I come up with, let's have the company logo in the top left corner. Okay, everybody's happy with that. Let's have a search bar, top right corner. Okay, everybody likes that. Now, this could be at the top, this could be on the side, your choice, depending on what skin file you want to go with. But I've chosen a left-hand navigation panel and a right-hand content area. But even the right-hand content area, this is where marketing steps up. Well, we want a great big splashy welcome graphic. We want to have links to both products. Sometimes you hear these referred to as navigation cards rather than links. They're like, great big clickable areas. And then we need a footer area, copyright notice, company information, links to Facebook, links to Twitter, all of our social media stuff. So this is the mock-up that all 3 stakeholders have agreed to. This is what we're shooting for. Now, to take this doodle diagram and put it in Flare parlance, everything in yellow, that will be controlled by the skin file. everything in blue, that footer information, we're going to do that using a master page. And then everything in red, that is going to be the actual homepage topic that we're about to edit. So those are the three major areas. Now, luckily, the yellow area, we're going to use one of our stock skin files for that. The blue footer area, I took the liberty of pre-creating that. There's nothing unique to a portal about that. It's just a standard master page, footer area. It's the red area that I really want to focus on. So the key to what we're about to do, though, and I should probably go back a little bit, these two big navigation graphic to product A, navigation graphic to product B, they want them side by side like that on desktops and tablets, but on a smartphone, they want them to switch and render vertically. So it's a better fit on that narrower screen. So that is where we're going to have to go into a new, different technique in Flare. And we're going to create what's called a responsive layout. Now, if you haven't worked with responsive layouts in Flare before, and boy, time is starting to scare me, couple of key things you just have to remember. The old days where we had to deal with pixels and calculating sizes, those days are gone. Building responsive layouts, if you've ever heard the term fluid design or liquid design, a page that adapts, same thing. Those were just terms that were used in the earlier days of the web. When we start talking responsive layout, we're talking that same concept, but a much more automated, easier to implement way. So as I said, no more individual pixels, no more doing math, no more any of that. All we do is think of the screen, any screen, as being 12 columns wide. Basically, they lifted this technique out of the newsprint industry. This is the same way that newspapers, set up their homepage. So if I think of the screen as being 12 columns, and it doesn't matter whether it's 1080 pixels wide or 720 pixels wide or 1440, I don't care about pixels anymore. I just care about the number 12. If I want something to be the full width of the screen, I give it a value of 12. Our two buttons that we want side by side, we just give each of them a value of 6, because 6 plus 6 equals 12. Now, if you wanted to do something fancier, maybe I want a top nav interface and I want my content on the left, but I want a little menu on the right. Well, you can do 9 and 3. It still adds up to 12. It's just, one side is 9/12 of the page, the other side is 3/12 of the page. So as long as you can count to 12, you're golden. Now, where the magic comes in with Flare is we use mediums. Here I have those two navigation cards. Under the default medium, I give it a value of 6. Under the tablet medium, I give it a value of 6. But under the mobile medium, I give it a value of 12. And I do that to both of those cards. So that means on a desktop or a tablet, it will render how you see in gold here. But the moment it detects a smartphone, it will render the way you see in purple, automagically. It literally detects the device that it's rendering on. So that's kind of the big picture. So how do we do that in Flare? Well, again, these slides will be downloadable, so I really included this for the people who download the slide deck. We're going to do this live in a moment. But you go into Flare, go to the home ribbon, and select responsive layout. That's going to add a special panel on the right of your editor. In the responsive layout panel, click New Style, then select a template and name it. We're going to choose the 6-6 template, the one that's side by side. Then we click Insert Row, and that responsive layout will be added to our topic. Now, once we have those cells, you can put any normal topic content into those cells. So that's description. Let's actually do it live. Let's pull the Portal project back up. I'm going to open Portal Home. Now, the welcome. I'm not going to cover this. We did this in webinar episode 3. All it is a standard heading 1, but that heading 1 is inside of a div. And that div, well, we introduced divs in episode 4, but then applying a graphic as a background property of a style. We covered that in webisode number 3. So that we've already covered. But I'm going to come down here to this empty paragraph below the welcome. I'm going to go to the Home tab. Up above, I'm going to click Responsive Layout, and that is going to open this Responsive Layout editor. Now, up in the top right, I click New Style. I give it whatever name I want, and then I choose one of these templates. Now, I'm not going to click OK here. I actually have Portal Home that I created earlier that I'll be able to reuse. So I already have that in here, but I would just name it what I want. And there's a 4-4-4, a 3-column template, a 6-6, that's one we would use. There's an 8-4 that's available. Lots of built-in templates. Once you've created that template, you put your cursor where you want it inside your topic or inside a master page, for example. We choose it from the drop-down. And again, I did Portal Home. And then we click Insert Row. Now, if you look in my topic, it almost looks like a table. Well, trust me, it's not a table. If I put my cursor inside of cell 1 now, I'll press the Enter key twice. Now I have some working room, but notice cell 2 did not change. This is definitely not a table. This is 2 div elements that Flare has created about 14 different styles to manipulate and control based on those rules of 12. So in cell 1, I'm going to do this as quickly as I can. I'm just going to add a graphic and a label. So I'm going to go to the Insert Image option on the local toolbar. I'm going to grab this little check mark graphic, click OK. Beneath that, I'm just going to type the label, Product A. Now I'm going to go to cell 2. I'll do the same thing. I'll press the Enter key twice. On the first row, I'll insert another graphic. Instead of the checkbox, let's do the gears. And then underneath it, I'll type Product B. Now I'm going to cheat a little bit here. Let's save that before I move on. I'm about to use a div style named nav card. Again, we've done this in the last 3 or 4 episodes of the webinar series. I didn't see a lot of value in walking you through this step by step, but if you want to replicate what I'm about to do, this is the recipe of the style I'm about to use. Now, the only one thing that I'm going to point out here is we've never really talked about cursor before. You can actually change the cursor through the style sheet. Now, the reason I did this, and this one is optional, I'm going to show you two different ways to do those nav cards. I am going to actually dig into the code and add the link manually. Because of that, I need to manipulate this cursor through the style sheet. If that makes you uncomfortable, I'm going to show you a simpler technique. If you use the simple technique, then you would not use this cursor pointer style property. All right, but that's the recipe of the style we're about to use. But now if I jump back into our portal project, the reason I created that style is now I can select the text product A and select the image. And with both of those selected, I'll go to my paragraph area, go to the group icon, and now I just select the style nav card and click OK. And we basically now have that entire look and feel that we need. That new div we've added, it increased the text size, it made it bold, it centered everything, it gave me a background color, it gave me a border, and it rounded off the corners, all from a single div style. And you wonder why I spent 4 sessions on styles. It's the secret sauce. I'll do the same thing on my product B. Again, we'll go up, we'll add div.navcard, click OK. So now, if you want to do this the simple way, if digging into the code view scares the pants off of you, I get it. All you have to do is go to the text, highlight the text, and say insert hyperlink. The downside of that is it will look like a big button, but they will physically have to click the text product B to navigate. What I'm going to do, I'm going to highlight the word product there, and fair warning is about to show code. I am going to go into the code view. I'm going to go to where it says div class equals nav card, and I'm just going to, and it jumped on me. There we go. I'm going to paste just a short smidgen of JavaScript. It's basically an on-click command telling it that if you click anywhere inside this gray area, then navigate to this other topic. It's a very fancy way of doing a link, but I like it. I'll do a save. And now if we close that, and trust me, I put this in the slide as well. You'll see that in a minute. So now that it's saved, if I preview this, now because it's JavaScript, it will not go to the correct topic. But now you can see whenever I hover anywhere over that gray area, it looks like a link. And even if I click way off on the side, it jumps. So that little bit of JavaScript really makes that navigation card functional. Whereas on the one on the right, it looks like a link only because I have that cursor attribute defined, but clicking around in here is doing nothing. I actually have to click on product B, then it will link to the new product. So a couple of different techniques. And of course, in the real world, I would delete that text, cell 1 and cell 2 up at the top. But let's test this. What if we shrink the window? Oop, we get to a phone mode and they just stacked up automatically. And here you can see that footer from the master page coming in. So we pretty much have our home portal page now defined. Now again, just for those who download the slide deck, what did Mike just do? I opened the topic portal home. I used the responsive layout panel to add those 2 responsive cells side by side. In each cell, I added a graphic and a text label. I then applied the style div.nav card, and I showed you the CSS for that 2 slides ago. Then I cheated and I added that little bit of JavaScript code to the div. And that exact code I used is right there on the slide. All right, so everything is looking pretty good at this point. How are we doing on time? We have 5 minutes left. Yikes. I really want to do a build right now. Let's do a build. Let's see how this thing looks. So I'm going to go to Save All, HTML5, General tab. Oh, how did I forget this? We didn't build our table of contents yet. Yikes. Here I'm trying to save time and I get ahead of myself. All right, we go to TOCs. We have product A, product A, product B, product B. But here's portal. I'm going to open portal. Now, when Flare creates a new TOC, it just has these 2 little placeholders. We're going to delete both of those. This is how cool and easy it is to do a portal. I want the product A installation guide TOC. Drag it up and drop it. I want the product A user guide TOC. Drag it up and drop it. I want the same things for product B, installation guide and user guide. We've just created a completely modular portal TOC. And the nice thing is if anybody in the production projects makes an edit to one of those TOC files, it will automatically update here and automatically update our comprehensive portal TOC. That is a mistake I've seen people make. They literally try manually creating a TOC in here based on the imported topics. And will that work? I mean, yeah, I can grab an imported topic over and drop it. So yeah, I can do it. The problem is if one of those production teams, if they add new topics, then you have to manually add them. By doing it the way I showed, by doing a modular TOC, by literally reusing their existing TOC files, but concatenating them together, now it's totally automated. So now that I've updated portal TOC, I want to make sure that that is the TOC file being used. And we'll do a build. Fingers crossed. When the build finishes, we'll open this up in our web browser. And now, if a customer wants to manually browse, there's the product A installation guide, the product A user guide, product B installation, product B user. So they can manually browse any individual manual they want. Why did it use the wrong home? Oh, silly instructor, master, or startup topic. It's going to home. I forgot to set that to portal. One more time. All right, so I said at the very beginning, I did want to include search filters, time permitting. It looks like we're pretty much right at the end of the hour. So when I open this build, we're going to start to wrap up. But for those who want that search filter information, I will cover that after we officially close. So if you want to stick around, great. Or if you just want to download the video and consider that like bonus content at the end, you can do that as well. All right, something is going awry here. What did you do, Mike? I set it to portal home. Dagnabbit, it's still not using portal home. That's okay. When in doubt, you just kick it real hard. We'll make portal home the very first entry. Ha! Take that. It's probably something silly that I did in the hurry that we were in. And that still didn't do it. All right, I'm getting frustrated now. What did you do, Mike? Startup topic, content. Oh, I have a sneaky suspicion. Is my target being imported and therefore it keeps resetting? We'll try that. I may have gotten carried away. With my syncing. Ha! There we go. Finally. So now you can see our navigation on the left is working. We have our two big cards. I can click anywhere on product A and it jumps right to the product A getting started topic. So our nav cards are working. Now if I go to search and if I search on feature, well, now I get all of the feature topics, but from both product A and product B. So our search is searching globally. So finally, I'm about 3 minutes long, but we achieved what we were going for. Now, to let you know, what did I do wrong? I told Flare to synchronize everything, including it was synchronizing my target file. Again, what did I tell you in the beginning? Naming is critical. I should not have a target named HTML5. That's too generic. What was happening is when I did the synchronization from product A and product B Flare projects, their HTML5 target was overriding my HTML5 target. My mistake, I should have seen that coming. By simply overriding that import behavior, well, then I was able to get the build that I wanted. All right, so with that 4 minutes past time, I am going to do just a couple of final slides. And as I said, if you want to stick around for the search filter, or Craig says, or rename the target. Absolutely. That probably would have been the best thing for me to do. I would have just renamed that target. That would have broken the synchronous link, and I would have never had that problem again. All right, so to summarize, for those who can't stick around, we set up the scenario. 2 different teams, 2 different Flare projects. We wanted to combine them into one common portal. We had to prepare the production projects by changing the naming conventions, and I should have changed the name of the targets, but I didn't. Then we created the portal Flare project and established the import linking. Then we created the new custom home page to satisfy all of the stakeholders. And that's where we're going to officially end. But again, if you can stick around, we will do the search filter component as well. Now, a couple of notes for those who attended. I've been told by sales there's a special running. By one license, you can get by 3 licenses, get 1 added on for free. Just mention that you were attendants of the webinar. And for those who want to go way deeper, the types of things you saw here today, again, think about Mad World coming up in October. For those who are ready to go out and meet and greet, it will be live in Austin, Texas. For those that think it's a little premature, there will be an online component to Mad World as well. So for those of you who need to drop off at this point, thank you so much for attending. For those of you who can stick around just a smidge longer, I am going to go back and do the search filter. Now, if you're not familiar with what a search filter is in Flare, it's a way to limit the magnitude of any search that you do. Now, there's a couple of steps to it in Flare. First, you have to decide what filters that you want. I could create 4 filters. I could say search globally or search in one of these 4 specific manuals. I'm not going to take the time to do that. I'm just going to set up 2 search filters. I'm going to say, do you want to search product A or do you want to search product B? So once you've decided what filters you want, you go into the production projects and apply what are called concept markers. Now, if you've ever done index markers, it's the exact same technique. Once we've identified the appropriate topics, then we go to the portal project and we add a new file of search filter set. Then we define the search filter set, tell it which of those concept markers to use, and then we just tell our target to use that search filter, and we are all set. All right, so if that's the game plan, I'm going to pull up one of those production projects, product A. I'm going to open any topic, doesn't matter which topic. And if I turn on my markers, I'm going to go to View and Concept Window. It's right next to Index Window. So with my cursor right in front of my H1, if we want to add the term Product A, I can just type Product A, press Enter. And now we have this kind of olive green marker. Now, an index marker would be dark green. The concept markers are a little bit lighter. I can now go through and do this on all topics. Now, if you don't want to have to take the time to go through and do it one by one by one, once you've added the first one manually, you can come down here into the concept window, click on the concept, assign topic, and here you can do multi-select. So I could go in like my group B features, multi-select all of them. Oh, wait, I thought it used to let me, oh, I know what the trick is. There we go. I'll do the split screen, multi-select, and open. So now if I go into features, all of those topics now have that concept marker applied. So we apply that concept marker to all of our topics that should be included in a particular search filter, and we're done in the production projects. I did the same thing in product B. I add product B concept markers in all of those. All right, now we're going to go to the portal project. In the portal project, we're going to say File, New. The type of file that we want is a search filter set. Once we choose search filter set, Flare is going to add a new file to your project. It will go into the advanced tab, and I already have one here that I created last night. If I open that, well, now you can see I have a search filter. Its name is product B. It's based on the concept marker, product B. So that's important. The concept marker, whatever your naming convention is, the world will never see that. The label that the world gets to see is right there. So even if you use something that's shorthand or technical jargon when you were doing the concept marker, nothing wrong with that. You can prettify it when you're defining this search filter set. Because again, filter name, this is what will actually show up in that HTML5 interface. Now I'm going to go ahead and add a second one. It says new filter. I guess I should get rid of those blue squiggles so they're not in the way. The new one, I'm just going to name product A. Go into concepts. Oh, and it didn't find any. I haven't synchronized yet. That's okay. There's a sneaky way to trick the system. I can go into any topic. Doesn't matter. I'll go into this home page that I'm not using. I will add a couple of matching concept markers. And by doing this in the portal project, I'm just basically seeding it. Product A marker and product B marker. All right, so I now have those two markers in my portal project, and I just did it on a throwaway topic that didn't matter. So now I can go back and where it says product A, concepts, product A. So now the two labels that will show up in the filter are matching their associated concept markers. And we'll do a save. That's pretty much it until we get to the target. Final step. We go to the target. We go to, is it advanced? There we go. Yep. Search filters. You tell it which search filter to use. And if we do one final build, all right, so fingers crossed. I just did our final build, so I can definitely navigate individual manuals. I have the big links to link to in the start page for individual products. But now if we go to search, and if I search on feature again, well, I get 8 results. But notice my search bar. It has a new intermediary icon. if I click that little intermediary icon, I can choose to search all files, only search product A, or only search. If I choose product B, well, now I only have 4 results. So that just narrowed my search scope. And anytime you're doing a portal like this, especially if you're getting up into the dozens of documents, it can be really a nice thing for your reader to let them narrow their search scope. Because sometimes the search results can just be overwhelming when you're searching dozens of documents. The intermediary icon was present before. That was my goof. Again, I was doing some practice for this demo last night. Apparently, I forgot to turn that off. But if I pull up some customer samples, they're just live and out there on the web. You'll notice like Raven here, their search box does not have that intermediary dropdown. If your Flare project does not have a search filter set, then that extra piece will not be there. It only shows up once you've created a search filter set. All right, so I hope that was worth an additional 15 minutes. If you haven't seen a search filter before, I hope that was helpful and beneficial. I am going to try and take a few minutes and go back and see if I can get to any questions that came up. So scrolling back up again here in the Q&A window, what have I missed? So question, what if you don't want that left-hand navigation panel? You just want to be able to search. Absolutely, you could turn off that left panel if you want to in the skin file. I mean, you don't basically turn it off, you set it to a width of 0, which visually turns it off. But what would be included in your search would be determined by that portal table of contents that we created, not the left-hand navigation panel. So yes, you could disable the left panel and search would still work. And it would get much more advanced than I can show here, but you could turn off the left panel just for the home page, but then have it visible when you get to the interior pages, if that makes any sense. All right, there's a more of a comment than a question to remind people that if your Flare projects are stored in source control, that adds another layer of complexity. Absolutely. One of the things you can do in a Flare target is add what is called a pre-build script. So if you are relying on a lot of synchronization with source control, such as Git or Team Foundation Server, you can actually create a script. So when you tell Flare, build HTML5, it will first do a pull from your source control, pull the most recent files, then once that script is complete, then Flare would continue with its synchronization and then its build. So yes, absolutely. Once you start adding source control, it just does add one more level of complexity. When applying concept markers, could you apply it to a folder instead? I was pretty sure you used to be able to do that, but I will be honest, in the week leading up to this webinar, I kept trying, and either I couldn't figure out how I used to do it, or it was turned off for some reason. So maybe somebody else on the call knows how. I was unable to find a way to apply concept markers at the folder level. Again, it just could be my bad memory as I get older. I'll see if I can't do some more research on that. All right, but I think that's... Could the web UI include a button to let the reader decide to show or hide the left-hand navigation panel? That's one of those trick questions. Out of the box, the answer is no. You know, give me an afternoon and let me write a few lines of custom JavaScript, and it could absolutely be done. So some of that just depends how deep would you like to go. Some people have no problem with, you know, adding a bit of custom JavaScript. Other people, that scares the pants off of them. So I just want to be, you know, respectful of where people are on their learning curve. But could the left-hand UI be turned on or off? Absolutely. If that's interesting to you, basically you would have a button connect to a short script that would be writing to the document object model, and you would set the div for that left-hand panel from block to none. And then if they click that button again, you set the property of that div from none back to block. All right, but with that, I think we are going to officially wrap up. Thank you, everybody, for participating. I know it was a lot of information, but finally we reached episode 5. We used all of the information from the previous 4 webinars, and this was kind of the big red bow up on top. So I hope it was helpful. I hope it was beneficial. I see the note that I need to do a separate series on cool JavaScript techniques in Flare. Who knows? That might be coming. But thank you, everybody. Have a great rest of today and an even better rest of your week.